There are moments in your life that don't feel important while they're happening. No alarms, no warning signs. Just a sentence that sounds ordinary enough to ignore. For me, it was when my wife said, "You don't have to come tonight if you're tired." That was all. No argument, no tension. Just a suggestion. We had been married for 7 years at that point, together for almost 10. Long enough that we didn't question small changes anymore. Long enough that comfort had replaced curiosity. We had routines, predictable mornings, predictable evenings, predictable conversations that never went anywhere dangerous. Her name was Natalie. She worked in corporate communications for a consulting firm downtown. Smart, articulate, ambitious. The kind of woman people listened to when she spoke. I admired that about her. I trusted her because she had never given me a reason not to. That night was her company's annual winter event. Not a party exactly, more like a networking gala. Clients, executives, senior leadership. She'd mentioned it weeks earlier, told me it was important, but not mandatory for spouses. At first, she wanted me there. Then a few days before, she casually said, "Honestly, it's probably going to be boring for you. Mostly work talk." I almost agreed. I'd had a long week. Deadlines, early mornings. The idea of standing around holding a drink while people talked in acronyms didn't sound appealing. But something about the way she said it stuck with me. Not the words, the tone. It wasn't dismissive. It wasn't annoyed. It was careful. "I can still come," I said. She smiled quickly. "Only if you want to." That was the thing. She used to want me to want to come. That night, as I put on my jacket, she looked at me like she was relieved. And that should have been my first real warning. The venue was a renovated hotel downtown. All glass and steel and warm lighting, designed to make expensive things feel comfortable. Music hummed softly through the room, the kind you notice without listening to. Natalie moved through the crowd with ease, greeting people, laughing at the right moments. I followed half a step behind, like I always did at her work events. Not because she asked me to, but because it felt natural. She introduced me to a few colleagues. Everyone was polite, professional, normal. Then I noticed him. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. People gravitated toward him without realizing why. Tall, calm, confident in a way that didn't seek attention. Natalie noticed him too. Not in an obvious way. Just a glance here and there. Slightly straighter posture when he was nearby. A different smile when he spoke to her. "Who's that?" I asked casually. She didn't hesitate. "Ethan, regional director. He flew in from New York." Something in her voice changed when she said his name. Just enough for me to hear it. "Sounds important," I said. She shrugged. "He is." We split up for a bit. She joined a small group near the bar. I talked to a client about nothing that mattered. When I turned back, she was gone. Not far, just not where she'd been. I scanned the room, expecting to spot her near the restrooms or another cluster of coworkers. I didn't. Instead, I saw her across the room with Ethan, standing closer than necessary, leaning in, laughing, the kind of laughter that doesn't carry, meant for one person only. I told myself not to read into it. I grabbed another drink, checked my phone, counted the minutes. After a while, I went looking for her. A woman from HR smiled awkwardly when I asked if she'd seen Natalie. "I think she stepped outside for some air," she said, not meeting my eyes. Outside, it was winter. I followed the hallway toward the terrace doors. The noise of the event faded behind me, replaced by quiet and the low hum of the building. The doors to the terrace were closed, but I could see silhouettes through the glass. Two figures, standing close, too close. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, watching their outlines shift, watching her tilt her head the way she did when she was listening intently, watching his hand lift, hover near her arm, then fall away like he was testing something. I could still turn back, pretend I hadn't seen it. That thought crossed my mind for exactly 1 second. Then I pushed the door open. They stepped apart instantly. Natalie's face went pale when she saw me. "Hey," she said too quickly. "I was just getting some air." Ethan nodded, composed. "Good evening." I looked at them, the space between them, the silence that followed. "Am I interrupting something?" I asked. Natalie shook her head. "No, of course not." But her voice didn't match her eyes. We went back inside. She stayed close to me after that. Too close. Her hand gripping my arm like an anchor. She talked more than usual, laughed louder, touched my shoulder in ways that felt performative. When we got home, she went straight to the shower. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the water run, replaying the night frame by frame. telling myself I was imagining things, that work environments breed strange dynamics, that proximity doesn't equal betrayal. But something had shifted. I could feel it. Over the next few weeks, she changed subtly, stayed later at work, took calls in other rooms, became protective of her phone. Not secretive exactly, just guarded. One night, as she typed a message and smiled to herself, I asked, "Who's that?" She didn't look up. "Work." She said it easily, too easily. The name Ethan started appearing in conversations more often, always professionally, always justified, always framed as unavoidable. He's demanding. He has high standards. He expects a lot. So did I. I just didn't get the same energy anymore. The confirmation didn't come from her. It never does. It came from a calendar notification she forgot to delete. A dinner marked as client meeting, scheduled on a night she told me she'd be out of town. That was when I stopped guessing. That was when I decided to stop asking questions that could be lied to. And that was when I realized the night at the gala wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time I was allowed to see the edge of it. After that calendar notification, I stopped pretending I didn't know what was happening. I didn't confront her right away, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to understand the shape of the truth before she had a chance to reshape it for me. I'd learned over time that questions asked too early only give people time to rehearse their lies. So I watched. I noticed patterns I'd ignored before. The way she'd check her phone first thing in the morning, then again before bed, the way she'd shower later than usual when she came home from work dinners, the way she'd talk about Ethan with a strange mix of admiration and irritation, like someone trying to justify an attachment they didn't want to admit. I also noticed what stopped happening. She stopped asking about my day, stopped making plans beyond the next week, stopped touching me without a reason. It was like she was slowly unplugging from our life while keeping the lights on just enough that I wouldn't panic. One night while she was asleep, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't grab it. I didn't need to. The name that flashed briefly across the screen was enough. Ethan. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling something settle inside me. Not anger, not heartbreak, finality. A few days later, she told me she'd be traveling for work. Overnight, different city, short notice. "Can't get out of it," she said, already halfway gone. I nodded. "Okay." She paused like she was waiting for a reaction. I didn't give her one. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a friend of mine who worked in the same industry, someone who knew how these companies operated, how these business trips often played out. I didn't ask for surveillance. I didn't ask for proof. I asked one question. If someone wanted to hide something like this, how careful would they need to be? He didn't hesitate. "Not very," he said. "People assume familiarity equals invisibility." That was enough. When she came back the next day, she kissed my cheek and said she was exhausted. I told her to rest. I watched her walk away and realized how easy it had become for her to lie. The confrontation didn't happen in a dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no accusations thrown across the room. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. We were sitting at the table, sunlight coming in through the windows, the house quiet. I'd waited until there were no excuses left. No meetings, no calls, no deadlines. "I know," I said. She looked up slowly. "Know what?" "About you and Ethan." Her face didn't collapse. That told me everything. She exhaled, leaned back in her chair, and closed her eyes for a second, like someone who had been caught holding their breath for too long. "It's not what you think," she said automatically. I nodded. "That's usually how this starts." She tried to explain. She said it wasn't planned, that it started as work, that they connected, that it made her feel seen, that she hadn't meant to hurt me. I didn't interrupt. When she finished, she looked at me like she expected anger, tears, a breakdown. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. I folded my hands on the table. "Now you tell me the truth, all of it, or we stop talking." She hesitated. Then she told me. Not everything, but enough. It had started months ago. Conversations that went too long. Messages that crossed lines. A night that shouldn't have happened but did. Promises that it would stop. And then, it didn't. She said she was confused, that she didn't know how to choose between stability and excitement. I listened, then asked the question that had been waiting patiently in my chest. "If he asked you to leave with him today, would you?" She didn't answer. Silence is loud when it's honest. "I didn't think so," I said. She reached for my hand. I moved it away gently. "I'm not angry," I told her. "I'm just done." That was the moment she panicked. She cried. She apologized. She promised to end it, to change jobs, to rebuild trust. She said it was a mistake, but mistakes are accidental. This was deliberate. I told her I wanted space, real space, not the kind that hides something else inside it. She moved out that week. The house felt different immediately, not emptier, quieter, like a constant background noise had finally stopped. The fallout came later. Word travels fast in corporate environments, especially when power dynamics are involved, especially when someone forgets that discretion is part of professionalism. Ethan was investigated quietly, reassigned, removed from projects. His name stopped coming up in conversations altogether. Natalie tried to hold on to her position, but things changed. Invitations disappeared, meetings shortened. Eyes followed her in rooms where they hadn't before. She quit 3 months later. She told me she couldn't stand the silence, the looks, the unspoken judgments. I understood that better than she knew. The last time we spoke in person, she asked me if I thought we could ever try again. I thought about it honestly. No, I said, because even if I forgave you, I'd never unknow what I learned. She nodded slowly, like she already knew the answer but needed to hear it out loud. Time passed. Life simplified. I didn't rush into anything new. I didn't need distraction. I needed alignment. I rebuilt routines, focused on work, on myself, on the parts of me I'd neglected while trying to keep something alive that had already decided to leave. Months later, I ran into Ethan by accident. Different city, different setting. He looked smaller than I remembered. He didn't approach me, didn't apologize, didn't explain. He didn't need to. That story had already ended. The last thing Natalie ever sent me was a message I read once and never replied to. She said losing me was the cost of learning who she was. Maybe that was true. All I knew was this. Love doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes quietly in moments you're told not to worry about. And the moment you stop arguing with reality, the moment you stop asking people to choose you, something strange happens. You choose yourself. And the silence that follows isn't lonely. It's peaceful.